Welcome and thanks for joining the final day of Arup's Digital Horizon series. This series of events is examining how digital approaches are creating real impact on the biggest challenges of our time. I'm Tom Wilcock, Arup's Digital Services Leader in the UK, India, Middle East and Africa. Throughout this week of Digital Horizons, we've been focused on real examples of applied digital capabilities and solutions. We've covered AI for positive impact, digital and data for net zero, climate resilience and nature positive solutions. So following on from that, in today's session, we're going to explore how digital twins and digital asset management are accelerating decarbonisation. And to do this, I'm joined by a fantastic group of people working at the forefront of this area. They're a global group and they're going to bring perspectives from a diverse range of sectors. Patricio Reyes, Head of Urban Data Science at the Barcelona Supercomputer Center, is our keynote speaker. He's promised a really interactive session, and I'm super excited to see that. Following Patricio, we're going to be joined for a panel session by Ilene Goldfine, SVP and Senior Digital Strategy Officer for Hines, based in Houston, Texas, and Simon Evans, Arup's Director of Digital Twins, which is obviously pertinent to the topic. That panel session is going to be moderated by Shen, the Digital Services Leader for Arup in the Americas West. Throughout the session, if you'd like to ask any questions, please just look to the right-hand side and you'll see a Q&A box. Those will come through to the panel. So before we get started, I just want to thank you again for joining and turn over to Dr. Will Cavendish, Arup's Global Digital Services Leader, for a brief overview. Will.
Welcome to Arup's global webinar series, Digital Horizons. It's fantastic to bring people together, both on our panel and online, to explore a topic that I know many of us care deeply about: how we can use digital to achieve meaningful impact in shaping a better future for the built environment. Many people here will be confronting the same generational challenge we're facing here at Arup. How can we meet the human needs of the roughly 10 billion people that will soon be living on our planet, while at the same time reducing significantly the huge and detrimental environmental footprint of our sector? Through this 3-day webinar series, we want to explore how digital, data technology and AI can support us in meeting this challenge. Part of this is about providing real-world, tangible examples of where we're already making progress to inspire and give a legitimate sense of hope, but also to explore some of the barriers to getting the most out of these solutions and figure out how we can all go further, faster. Today, we're looking at the question of how digital twins and digital asset management can help accelerate decarbonisation. At Arup, we've enthusiastically adopted these digital technologies to help our clients in seeking to achieve their critical decarbonisation goals. For example, as we move towards a net zero future, having a renewable, resilient, efficient and digitally managed energy grid is critical. We're delighted to be part of this transformation with some groundbreaking initiatives that are shaping the future of energy. One of our key projects is our collaboration with Great Britain's electricity system operator, ESO, on the Virtual Energy System programme. The aim is to create the world's first ecosystem of connected digital twins, bringing together the physical and digital aspects of the UK's energy system seamlessly to allow ESO to plan and operate the net zero electricity grid of the near future. In other areas, we've developed digital solutions that integrate our engineering expertise with advanced algorithms and AI-based data insights to manage major infrastructure better and safely extend their life. In built environment sectors as varied as property, bridges, transport and offshore wind, digital is saving operational carbon by 30% or more through supporting better asset management, and saving significant embodied carbon by safely repurposing assets or extending their life by 10, 30 or even 100 years. Digital twins and digital asset management technologies are critical components of the future of the built environment. These technologies provide a comprehensive, data-driven approach to managing assets, enhancing efficiency, sustainability and resilience throughout the asset lifecycle. And these technologies can be harnessed to galvanise decarbonisation in the built environment, whether this is being looked at via a Scope 1, Scope 2 or Scope 3 lens, or as embodied versus operational carbon. So given that, what can be done to accelerate these approaches? How can we make them the norm rather than the exception? What are the quickest and most cost-effective ways to develop and embed these approaches on an industry or global basis? There is an imperative need for more decisive action on carbon than we've achieved to date. And so, if we have successful approaches, we need to deploy them at pace. These and many more are some of the issues that I hope our panel will address, bringing examples from across sectors and across the world and highlighting best practice. I hope you all enjoy.
Great, thanks, Will, and a really nice segue, I think, at the end there into our keynote presentation from Patricio. Will talked about the need for rapid adoption and acceleration of the use of tools and approaches that are bringing real value. And I know Patricio's got fantastic examples to share with us today. So Patricio, could I hand over to you for a bit of a longer intro to yourself and the fantastic work that you're leading at the Barcelona supercomputer. Patricio.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So hello, everyone. My name is Patricio Reyes. I'm a senior researcher here at Barcelona Supercomputing Center. I'm also head of the Urban Data Science research line. So, well, thank you for inviting me. And I'd like to first talk about just a brief introduction of Barcelona Supercomputing Center. The Barcelona Supercomputing Center is the national supercomputing center in Spain. So what we do is to provide high-performance computing capabilities to researchers across Europe. We are a public research center, so this is for free and no cost, and devoted to any researcher in Europe. We are actually also famous because we host Mare Nostrum 5, which is one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world. It's in the top 10 right now. And this is, again, devoted to any researcher in Europe. So I think that the most important questions here, maybe the buzzword in the panel, is that digital twins and what a digital twin is. So let's start from scratch. And I like to do a little bit of sci-fi. Imagine that we have a virtual human. Suppose that, I don't know, 10 years in the future, doctors can try a new treatment in your body, but this is kind of risky. So suppose that how important this could be if you have a virtual human and virtual replica of your own body. So in this way, the doctor can treat out different ideas or different treatments. Instead of your real body, they can treat in the virtual human. I think that the benefits are clear. Okay, this could be what a digital twin, a twin is. So let's just move this idea, but now into cities, and let's go to the past. Let's go to 2014, as far as I remember. Imagine that you are the gamer of a game like SimCity, and you have a goal. So you're the mayor, and you're expected to provide for your citizens basic needs by way of public services. So remember, you are the mayor, and this is your goal. And what will be the metric? If your citizens don't have access to services, they become unhappy. Okay, this is a simple idea, but in a couple of slides, I like to give you a glimpse of that. This is not a game, this is reality. So take a look at this image. This is how SimCity Build It was implemented in 2014. So you have a neighborhood, and you have different buildings there and people living there. And you have the metrics of happiness on top of the screen. So depending on your decisions, in this case, the decision on where to locate a new hospital, will impact the happiness of your citizens. And this is actually, even though this is a game, this is actually what we need to do right now with cities. And this is what we actually need to co-create with them. So this is why we're involved in a project that's called B-City, comes from virtual city, to plan what we call an urban future that puts citizens first. Okay, so we used to call it that this B-City is a kind of evidence-based platform to help assess the impact of new interventions on all aspects of the city. But I really like to talk about different aspects, even though we are the kind of the techie people in the audience, because we are the supercomputer center, we strongly believe that this should be taken in a human-centric approach. And this is key. And this is also important to let the city councils understand that the people has to be in the center of this evolution. Okay, so this is what a digital twin is, and this is what, a kind of simple idea of what a city digital twin is. So the next question is how this digital twin can help in climate neutrality and decarbonization. So I'd like to show you a couple of examples, so maybe we can discuss it in the panel about it. So think about this. So in 2021, more than 100 cities signed an agreement to become climate neutral by 2030. But as you may imagine, this involves a lot of changes in the cities. So in particular, in Barcelona, this requires drastic changes in transportation. So you can see in the plot in the middle that more than 50% of the total combined kilometers of commuting are still done by car. So our goal is to provide assistance to the cities in a way to achieve the model shifting to sustainable ways of transportation. So this is the way this is an approach to perform this goal of climate neutrality and decarbonization. Try to come up with better ideas and to do the model shifting to sustainable ways of transportation. But there are also other ways to do it. And there is a different way to approach the same problem. And it's, for example, how to really understand the ways of transportation in the city. So in this case, what you're seeing here is a model on how the transport in Barcelona is working. So you can see that this is not just road traffic, but also public transportation and also pedestrian. So this is a way of approaching what we're doing. Providing models to the cities, to the city councils in a way to help them in this, climate neutrality effort. But there is another approach, and the other approach is where to locate the facilities in such a way that commuting can be reduced. So I'm going to show you, for example, here a platform commissioned by the Barcelona City Council, where at this moment we can take a look at the hospitals in London, and you can see there in the map on the right, then you can see every hospital in London, as far as I remember, and the green area, the yellow areas are the ones that can be reached to a hospital within 15 minutes. So this is another way of approaching the same problem. In this way, we are not, doing model shifting. We are trying to reducing the commuting by doing a good distribution of the network of public services. So in that way, the citizens should benefit by reducing the commuting. Okay, so this is another approach. And for example, you can see here that this can be also seen in the public libraries. You can see that Barcelona have a really good distribution of public libraries, and almost every citizen in Barcelona has a public library within 15 minutes walking. We can also do the same, not just for Barcelona, but for any city involved in the project. In this case, you can see the map of Kobe in Japan, when you can see the public libraries, elementary school at 15-minute walking. But I think that this is important, the one that I'm going to show you right now. So you can see here, the red areas indicate the reachability of fire trucks within 10 minutes driving. So this is not only a tool to solve the problem of improved commuting times, but also reachability, or let's say accessibility or reachability to public services, in this case, fire trucks. So this can be done also for different aspects on the city, and one of the aspects we're really involved in is the extension of bike networks. So in order to improve and to help the modal shifting towards sustainable modes of transportation, we would like to find a way to, in a optimal way, how to extend the bike networks. And this is what we're doing well in collaboration with our cities. Okay, so this is more or less ideas related to how to come up with this approach of urban transportation. But let me show you another example, and this is more related to sustainability and also related to circular economy. We, as PSC, can also help this idea of climate neutrality by giving indicators to the municipalities on how the municipalities are embracing this idea of circular economy. For example, in this case, we come up with different data sets, we categorize the data sets, and we define an indicator for every municipality in Spain. There are more than 8,000 municipalities. Actually, in this case, the greener the better. And you can see how prepared are the cities to come up with circular economy. Okay, so those are a couple of examples that can help you in that direction of climate neutrality and how to go towards decarbonization. But I'd like to pose one thing that it's important, and we can discuss it in the panel as well. We strongly believe that all of these solutions should be people-centered. Really, really focused in the citizens living the city. Actually, this year we were invited to the Eurocity Digital Forum, and one of the, Eurocities is an association with more than 200 cities involved in Europe. And the main takeaway for this year was the following, that digitalization should be people-centered. And even more important, this is actually kind of key, and we will have to discuss it during the panel as well. So the smart cities are not the one with sensors. The smart cities are the one that makes smart decisions, okay? And this is crucial. Technology is not technology. We as a supercomputing center, we're not the magicians to do our magic with technology. We need to provide solutions, holistic solution to the cities. And one of them is let the city councils know that a smart city is the one that makes smart decisions. And this also involves digital inclusion. For example, in terms of digital inclusion, we were involved in a project about climate shelters. And this is pretty particular and pretty important for Barcelona. Climate shelter, in this case, summer climate shelters, are public spaces intended to provide protection during extreme temperatures. Okay, so Barcelona has a really interesting, network of climate shelter, and this could be, for example, public libraries or civic centers, indoor pools. But one thing that is important is first to figure out where the heat vulnerable population is living. So in that case, we get access to socio-demographic information, and you can see here that different levels of the density of heat vulnerable population in Barcelona. So this data is pretty important for us. So you can see later that we can change the way on how to measure the important KPIs for this policy. So once we got access to socio-demographic data, our approach was to figure out where are the climate shelters located. And you can see here in blue that, again, in the white dots is each climate shelter in Barcelona. And again, the blue areas are the coverage of this network. So every area covered in blue is an area with a climate shelter within 10 minutes. But this is important. In order to be people-centered, the 10 minutes are measured for 10 minutes for vulnerable population, and it involves elderly people, okay? So this is measured by 10 minutes for elderly people, okay? And this is one important thing. And the other thing that you can see here, that we can clearly see that there are empty spots in Barcelona where the coverage can be improved. So with this study, what we identify is that we can change how KPI can be measured. So we let the city council understand that the previous KPI was I mean, the area covered by the solution, I mean, the blue areas in Barcelona, we moved to a new KPI in which right now we're measuring the number of population impacted by the solution. And this is the thing that it's a really huge impact. And this can show us the way that we can provide better solution and people-centered solution by really taking care of the people living there, even in the KPIs. So in order to do that, we are also co-creating our solutions, and we strongly believe that people have to be involved in the process. That's why we are collaborating with Decidim. Decidim, it's a participatory democracy platform where people can vote and decide what do they really want to invest, for example, in the neighborhood. For example, whether they want a new park in the neighborhood or whether they need an extension of the bike lanes. So we can get the pulse of the city by taking a look at the data and how people living in the city can really, what are the needs for them. And this is key. So all of the things that I've shown you with the slides can be summarized that, again, that this should be a really multidisciplinary effort to come across with different ideas, with different solutions. That's why we're partnering with a lot of partners in this case, where Arup is involved and the CDM is involved, but also cities. So at this moment, we're testing our solutions with cities, Barcelona, Wilcock, and Cove, but we're really open to include more cities in this process because the co-creation process could be better. So please remember that we're a public research center, so we got the funds, so this is at no cost. So this is more or less what we would like to show you today, and I'll be happy to talk to you more about it in the panel.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patricio. Really insightful presentation. I particularly loved actually your quote around smart cities not being the ones with the sensors, but the ones that make the smart decisions. And it's absolutely fantastic and really is at the heart of what we're talking about this week in terms of places where there's real impact from technology, not just where it's used for its own sake. So yeah, really, really great. And I'm looking forward to hearing some of those threads picked up in our panel. So with that, I just want to say thank you again to Patricio, to invite the panel on stage, so to speak, and to hand over to Amy to take us away. Amy.
Thank you, Tom. What a great keynote to start us off, Patricio. And I am very happy to expand that conversation with Ilene Goldfine and Simon Evans. Maybe let's start off with talking about your personal history with digital twin, how you have defined it within your industry. Because we looked at how, Patricio, you talk about the history of digital twin starting from the virtual human, and I'm sure it looks quite different in the real estate and energy sector. And maybe have a little in-depth personal introduction in this response as well. Thank you. Ilene, maybe we start with you.
Sure, thank you. And I'm off mute, and I will say to the audience, if you hear a dog snoring in the background, I apologize in advance. So let me tell you this, I am coming into the world of digital twins and the digitization of buildings from a non-technical space. My history, I've worked at Hines for about 25 years. So I am the Chief Digital Strategy Officer of Hines, and we oversee, my group oversees all technology, all data, and all business process initiatives to make the firm better. So my job is to wake up every day thinking about how to do things better. And that encompasses what we're doing, at the real estate and whether that's in developments or operations and anything that we're doing, related to our operating our platform at the real estate level. So I come to this from a background, actually, I'm an ex-accountant. That's how I started my career. I then got into really kind of business process and business process re-engineering. And again, looking at things differently and how to do things better, how to be more efficient, how to do all that. So I don't come from a technical perspective. Let me say that. I was first introduced to digital twins X amount of years ago, as we were starting to look at them and use them in our development process. Right, and that's really to be able to assist and how we are building our buildings and ensuring that they can keep our standards and all that stuff. And then it really rapidly kind of morphed and changed into really what we're doing on our operating buildings and really putting in the digital backbone of our developments and our operating buildings, a digital twin. So in its non-technical capacity, how I think of it is how do you make a replica of something so that you can understand what you want it to do, what you don't want it to do, and be able to do those things without necessarily causing a change to the physical environment, right? And so, I think about what Patricio said is, if you think back to how you would make changes in a city or into a physical environment in the past without a quote unquote replica, it's a lot of expertise and brain power and all that, but it was also a little bit of trial and error, right? I mean, you didn't have the information. And so what I really think about digital twins as is, it's honestly Legos, from, however long ago of how do I create something so I can see the impacts of what I want to change, understand the information so I know, what I can do for the future, all those sorts of things, in a way that's, I'm going to say, more ecologically friendly, but also more impactful because you're able to understand what those changes and those things will do before you do them. So that's, I think, how I look at it.
Thank you. Simon, maybe we hear something from you.
Absolutely, of course. And really great to be here on this panel. So I'm Simon Evans, I'm a director here in Arup. And I have the privilege of really looking after digital twins across Arup and what that means for us and how we as an organisation start to embrace such a big trend and the changes it will have across all of the sectors in which we face. So I've been close to digital twins for quite a while. I first got exposed to them probably about a decade ago or so in my background in oil and gas, where we started looking at them for various complex kind of process and plant activities. And where I'm highlighting that in particular, it really shown that digital twins are not a new thing. They've been around for a really, really long time in various forms. And it's just a kind of evolution of connectivity, cloud compute and storage that's really accelerated their development over the last couple of years. And particularly in energy, my kind of core background, but into the wider built and natural environment. And I've also been really closely associated with a programme here in the UK, funded by the UK government, called the National Digital Twin Programme. And what that programme is looking to do is not to create a giant digital twin, because that would be ludicrous. Who would want to do that? It's about creating the ecosystem of connected digital twins across the entire built and natural environment. So that very much systems of systems thinking approach of how can we bring these things together and really answer some system-wide issues we've never seen before. And that trends really nicely into a lot of the work that I'm leading at the moment with, well, what's kind of shown on my title there, in the energy sector, and what Will referenced in his video at the beginning around our work with the national electricity system operator here in the UK, helping them to develop their, I guess, connected digital twin for the entire electricity system, which I think is super exciting on the net zero transition. The final thing I'll mention, Amy, and hand back to yourself, is I also sit on the board of an organisation called the Digital Twin Hub. And why I reference that is they're an organisation and a community who are really helping to drive forward much of a commonality of thinking around digital twins. And I'm not saying commonality in the sense of groupthink, because of course that's dangerous. I'm more saying it in the language of collaborating on the rules, competing on the game, that we spend way too much time debating what a digital twin is or isn't, and less time actually focusing on the use cases. So very, very keen that we kind of focus more on how they operate rather than what they are. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and really great to be here.
Thank you, Simon. I think it's so great to hear, Ilene, your perspective from the business perspective, right? How to really focus on how a business operates. And then Simon, you shared about how a eco chain of energy, how the industry is looking at connectivity using digital twin. And maybe, Patricio, you can summarize from the keynote, what are some of the must-haves for a digital twin in your opinion?
Yeah, thanks. But let me say that, Ilene, we do really need non-technical people involved in the co-creation of this process of helping cities and assisting cities. This is what we really need. And I really like your idea of Legos, because I mean, this kind of Lego blocks. I mean, in terms of we try to come up with different layers of the city, and we have to connect the cities. And this is actually, I mean, what relates to your question, Amy. The thing is that we need to provide solution for cities, but we need to first understand what are the Lego blocks of the city, what are the basic elements, and how they can be interconnected to come up with a holistic solution. So again, we do really need non-technical people involved on that.
That's great, and that's why I love this kind. Yes.
And let me jump in just if you don't mind as we're talking about this, because it is all connected, right? And so if I have a building that's sitting in Barcelona, which I think we do, so if we have a building, like what we're doing needs to tie into what you're doing, right? Because that's actually how you make real change, okay? And it's a little bit of what comes first, chicken and egg, but actually it has to all happen at pretty much at the same time. And Simon, back to what you said, and have some sort of commonalities and some sort of, I'm going to say, quote unquote standardization, okay? But in order to be able to do this in the right way. And I think from a real estate perspective, one of the hardest things has been that commonality, that sort of standardization across anything in real estate, right? And so I know there's a lot of things going on, even talking about, what's the data taxonomy related to actually sustainability data? Because if you can't get there, then how do we all know that we're speaking from the same languages? It's the same thing here, down to the digital twin and down to the building components, because if we can't get to that, then it doesn't work from a city perspective. It doesn't work from a real estate transaction perspective. It doesn't work, I mean, honestly, for our clients that are in the buildings, because they want some of this, they want to be able to work with us on change and what they need and all that. So it's all tied together, and it's a really interesting, difficult problem. So I would say a great opportunity to be able to try to do these things together.
If I may, I completely agree with you. I think what's really interesting is that digital twins, and to your point, Patricio, around really non-technical people, often are seen as a technical problem.
Yeah.
Like just buy some software from a vendor and you've solved
Absolutely.
it. And I would totally advocate for it to be a socio-technical problem, and the socio side, the policy, the people, the legal, the regulatory, the skills. I think that's actually the challenge. Nail that. You can get anyone to build any tech, but nail the socio side. I think you've solved the problem here.
Well, if you say socio, I'm going to say behavioral science and/or change management. Okay, because I think you're right, and depending on the I'm going to say, depending on where you are in the world, right, are also different views on that. Okay, and I've got some areas and some groups that think if I buy tech and I press a button, everything magically happens, right? I have other folks that say, well, I don't necessarily need the tech to do all these sorts of things, and it's actually in the middle, right? It's you've got to bring the people into the tech, into the business. You need to bring the tech forward, and it's got to come together. And it's a massive behavioral change management issue, more so I think than, like you said, the tech. The tech's hard, but in the context of it, it's the easier part.
Yeah,
I love this conversation. Go ahead, Patricia.
No, please, if I may, I just wanted to say that, I mean, what you're doing, Simon, it's a really huge part of the puzzle. I mean, how to prepare the cities, in a way that they can gather and collect the data that's needed for all of this process. So the digitalization of data, what's called the data spaces in Europe, it's a really important piece of the puzzle as well.
I'd love to dive deeper into the people and the data aspect. So this is a perfect segue to my next question. So we've seen different approaches towards defining a digital twin strategy. Some start with the top down. For example, maybe Simon, your example of a national authority connecting the energy business. Some start from bottom up, from extending existing systems capability. And also there's usually a key stakeholder that's coming in with how can we improve business? Do we have pain points? Could we maybe share a little bit about your journey in terms of working with stakeholders to come up with a use case or a strategy? How have you approached, what is the value of digital twin? Why are we doing digital twin?
Are you starting with Simon? Who are you starting with?
Oh,
Yeah,
I was just asking
I can
for
just
the
start with
panelists.
just a simple comment. I mean that this is a huge effort, but there is room for all the efforts. I mean bottom down, but there are people, who really want to make efforts in terms of working on use cases, or maybe we need also efforts in policy making, but also effort from the cities as well. I mean, we need all the kinds of efforts, to collect, and to come up with a good solution. Yeah. I mean, all the partners are welcome in this agenda, I guess.
So I would say from our standpoint and how we approached it, and this is, again, so my passion is change management. My passion is people. My passion is, what's in it for me, right? I mean, that's you kind of, as you're working through these sorts of things, you're talking about what's in it for, we do look at for the good of the greater good and climate and all that, what's in it for the company, what's in it for the people, and you've always got to kind of look at it from all those angles. And so what we did actually was we looked at it and said, we were going to start this because I'm going to say this lightly. It's not a light statement, that it kind of was a no-brainer, right? If you put in a digital twin and you put in this ecosystem in a building, again, I'm focusing on the real estate development and operating buildings, it accomplishes a lot of things, okay? A lot of things. And so whether that's from your sustainability goals, whether that's from your client sustainability goals, whether that's from more efficient, operations, from data, and ultimately from kind of true machine learning and all that. Mm-hmm. But you look at this whole thing, potentially an aging workforce. I mean, so we started looking at it and saying, okay, it checks. And once you are talking about that with your, uppermost levels and your leadership, it's kind of why aren't we doing this right now and going faster, and and all those sorts of things. And so, but we are not a top-down approach company. I mean, we don't just go and mandate something and it all happens, because we also have a lot of stakeholders in our ecosystem, from our clients and our investors and our people and all that. So then we kind of did this bottom-up approach and this middle approach, and it's all an approach of how you talk to everybody in their ecosystem to that they understand, right, where this is coming from. Because they might only be looking at it from one point of view, but that's a good, they need to look at it from that, and somebody else needs to look at that, somebody else needs to look at that. And so we spent a lot of time saying, it's absolutely the right thing. And now how do you start bringing people along on that journey? And then their eyes open up and say, yes, this will help solve my issue, and my issue relates to this client, or to this situation with investors, or to this situation from a sustainability perspective. And so that's how we had the engagement, and that was our strategy to approach it.
And I really agree with that as well, because I guess the top-down authoritarian, bottom-up Darwinian, both on their own right, have flaws. Industry pushback, or organisation pushback, or VHS versus Betamax, Blu-ray versus DVD. We haven't got time for that. So I think it's that blend, as you're saying, of the two together is really key. And what really strikes me as well is that this is so much about a journey rather than a destination, that there's so much here and now value that can be produced. But I definitely feel that there's a lot of fixation on this unicorn of a fully autonomous, living, breathing asset city, whatever it might be, space, and not the kind of thought of actually, if I do something small and use case driven, I can get some value now to drive return, to get the traction. And that kind of that journey, I guess, is the value, isn't it?
Right. And I'd also say, just holistically, this costs money, right? This isn't right, and it costs money. So back to that, if you're only going for the unicorn and you're not getting there, you're not showing that return on an impactful basis to your stakeholders quickly, they're that's a hard thing for them to conceptualize, right? So you have to bring it to what is immediate impact, and so that you can keep going and show that, and then it builds upon itself, right? I mean, we're from a business perspective, apologies, from from our clients, our investors, like, we need to show that we are doing everything in their fiduciary best interest, okay? And if you're just saying that I'm doing this because of the unicorn, it's a great idea, but that's, you got to show that the rubber meets the road. That's the way that we see it.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I mean, we're doing same approach in the same that NBC did that we're preparing a platform, and the platform should be future-proof, and it should be as general as possible. I mean, intended for urban planners where they can work, for a long time there, but it could last for years. But at the same time, we need to come up with use cases right now. So we're working in parallel, I think. We're working on the really, robust and future-proof platform. But at the same time, we need to come up with solutions now, and those are the use cases I mentioned. So yeah, I think that, there's a lot of room for all the partners in this ecosystem.
I think I agree with that. That kind of that ecosystem, that connectivity approach. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this. But I think sometimes digital twins are too much, back to our socio-technical thing, seen of as just tech to solve a problem. And I think a really interesting way that's becoming quite prevalent in kind of communities like the Digital Twin Hub and others is framing it much more as an approach, so a methodology, not a technology. And that methodology is about that kind of cyber-physical connection. And then it kind of becomes a bit too conceptual to grasp, but at the same time, I think makes it a bit more real, that you're actually looking at a use case that connects those two worlds together, that brings here and now value.
Yeah, right.
And what I would say, so we do have that challenge because a lot of people approach it. This is tech. Well, this is and really, what we've been taking the approach of saying is, we're very, very vocal about this, just, all the time, is that, there is a business that we're running and tech enables that business to be run. Okay. And so, tech in and of itself doesn't solve things, right? Data in and of itself doesn't solve things. You have a business and you need the business outcomes, and tech supports that. Okay. So whether or not that's in anything you do in the business, right? I'm going to harken back to, COVID days, and everybody's like, put it in the building app and everybody comes back. Okay, guess what? A building app doesn't make people come back. A program, a business-driven methodology is trying to get people to come back. The tech might enable it, right? And so we've had a lot of discussions about that, which is, it's just a different way of thinking, and that's what we talk about on a regular basis, because it's not just tech. And so I've been having a lot of discussions also with our firm, is that in real estate, it's easy to understand the physical. Okay, if you all think about it, right? I can touch a building. Okay, I can touch lobby furniture. I can touch an elevator. Okay, so it's easy to understand the value to a real estate ecosystem that those things provide, because it's a physical asset, and we've been in a physical world for so long. So the discussions that we're having a lot is that this digital twin, this is an asset in and of itself as well. It might not be a hard asset that you can touch, okay, but it is of equal import of value to the building. And just as much as you wouldn't rip out an elevator, let's say if we sell the building, whatever, or the need for an elevator, you do the same on a digital backbone and a digital twin. And so that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that people have, is just, especially in real estate, the notion of a physical versus a digital, and that the digital is of equal value as an asset to the building.
I love that comment, because like today's title, we're talking about digital twins and asset management. And I think this is a great time to address, how do we connect the digital twins to the digital asset management or asset management process, right? How is it changing, transforming the paradigm of asset management? And I understand decarbonization is on top of mind to all of our panelists here. I know for Hines, you're aiming for carbon net zero by 2040, even without buying offsets. That is an ambitious goal. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how digital asset management is being transformed by your initiatives towards accelerating decarbonization.
And just to clarify, let's clarify the term asset management, okay? Because I think there's asset management as a overarching how I run an asset and ensure that it's creating value and ensuring it's meeting the needs of our clients and all that. Then there's also physical asset management of assets in the building, and whether or not you're taking care of those assets and doing the right thing by those assets, and how also they impact your sustainability journey. Okay, I would say we actually look at it from both angles. I need to look at it from a asset management and running the building, creating value, and I need to look at it from a physical, asset management in the building and all that. I would say on the physical and the asset management and running the building, so this is incorporated in our strategy, in our digital twin strategy, and all that, which is how do you take the data coming out of a building, okay, and couple that with the other data coming out of the building and saying, okay, what is this telling me? What are the dials that I need to turn? What are the different scenarios that I can run that get me in a building to my optimal decarbonization state? Okay. And so that's not just, building optimization. That's not what we're talking about here, right? Building optimization is phase one of trying to get to decarbonized state. This is, these are the layers on top of it, of really that's saying, okay, if I have this data and I know these things are happening, what is my, I'm say like Excel goal seek, right, item that says if I do this and I do this and I do this with these assets at these that are this old and that are running like this and doing this and this, that I can get to my decarbonized state. So that is at a true asset level, asset management, kind of with the digital twin. What I'd say from a holistic asset management and how we run the buildings provide value, we believe wholeheartedly that a digital backbone and a digital asset will ultimately trade at a higher value. Okay, and I think that at some points in time, you are going to see, a discount for these sorts of things, because I believe that where all this comes together and to be able to do the decarbonization and where it actually to us provides, additional service and meeting the needs of our clients, and all that. I mean, this is real client experience. If you talk about it, really putting in this and running it that way, we believe that this will translate to value. We believe that this will translate, ultimately to trading of assets faster, better, more transparently. We really believe that, this again is an asset in the building that we need to care and feed and nurture, and that will ultimately be of value to all of our stakeholders.
I love the three different layers of looking at asset management, and each layer contains about different requirements on data and different change that you're seeing in your organization. Patricio, from a city perspective, is asset management something that's relevant to the urban initiative? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I'm working at the supercomputer center, but I don't know how to turn on the mic. Okay, so from my perspective, I see digital asset management are involved in data and more into how the cities can digitalize, the process. I think this is key, and this is why I really like what Simon is doing in this case, and how to come up with, assisting the cities to in the digitalization process. Because one thing is to gather the data, but another important thing is to filter the data, because sometimes sensors are not needed. This is important to let the cities understand. For example, for long-term important questions, maybe a temperature sensor, which is in a street, is not needed. So, from my perspective, I'm more into asset management in how to come up with data spaces and how to go into the digitalization of the processes. So that it's pretty important, by the way.
I'd agree with both of what you've said there. I think it's really interesting when you start to look at the Venn diagram between some of these topics, but they are all kind of talking about the same story arc, just using digital and data more effectively to give a better decision faster, and how we can do that in a way where you're having feedback from the environment. So one could argue that they are arguably doing the same thing, just one is a use case of the other, which I think could potentially be a view.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. And I hear again this kind of need of different parties working together and aligning data standards so that we can share what each other needs. So I'd like to ask a question about data. So sophisticated digital twin rely on data sources that are often held by different individuals, such as utility or cities or the real estate owners or operators. So how do you deal with this? How do you collaborate with maybe partners that's on the call today to enter in your digital twin effort? And what is missing? Like what should the industry that we're having today work with each other where you see data is missing a link or standardization that you would really vouch for? And this is for everybody as well. So maybe Patricio, yeah.
Yeah, if I may, maybe I just short comment, but I think that standardization in this moment plays a key role. Because different cities have different needs, but also different cities, are working on different digital twins, and most of them, they're not the same, and they're custom made per city. But we need to provide, a kind of a standard for all of them. So in that way, it will be easier, for sure, to reduce the cost, but also to improve, the solutions. Yeah. So I think that this is a work that has been done in parallel, but it's pretty important. Maybe we can, it will be great to discuss in another panel. But yeah, I think that we still, from my perspective, I still believe that we need to push more effort on standardization. And the problem is that it's not something that tangible. And it's not that, it's difficult to explain to the people that we really need to standardize our process and to really need to standardize our data, what would be the good format for all of these digital twins, But it will take time. So as I said before, right now we're in the moment and we need to invite more partners, more stakeholders to this ecosystem and try to figure out what will be in the future.
Maybe we can hear from you, Ilene, as well, because I think you were very passionate about the
I'm passionate about
real estate using different standards. Yes.
So first of all, this standardization needs to happen, but the reality of standardization happening is not going to happen. I'm just to say from I think you could do things in pockets, but if you're talking about worldwide standardization of some sort of taxonomy related, it's not going to happen. So to me, it's how do you create pathways to get, the guardrails so that it's easier to come together, right? Right now, they're just, it's too disparate, right? So even if you could get to some sort of, guardrails or pathways to get closer, that to me is a goal, that we should talk about. What I would say is the other two pieces is I think there is still a belief that the data itself is the thing, okay? And so because of that, people are very hesitant to share the data itself, right? And I think that at some point in time, we really need to discuss the data is the commodity, okay? Data should be shared. What you do with the data and how you choose to act on the data is actually what the thing is, right? And so, but there's still this thought that if I give you my bit or my byte, that's something that's an issue. So I think that has to get addressed. And then third, I'd say that, and this is, I have been very vocal about this as well, is that the ecosystem, in order for me to get what I need so that I can give, and connect it to what Patricio's doing in a city. Oh, sorry, that just came up. Sorry, I seem to have some issues with Teams. That means I have to open up the pipes for the base level in my building. Okay, those data pipes, and that's not necessarily sensors. I mean, that's specific data pipes, and there's too many vendors or at the base level that still believe that they want to keep that proprietary or still want to charge a lot of money to be able to have you get access to the data that's basically, related to your building. And that has to change as well, because that's not helpful for anyone unless we can get that resolved.
Thank you, Ilene. And I think we definitely do want to leave some time for the questions from the audience. But I just want to personally say thank you so much for all your insights. And I love how much we got to in the last 25 minutes. So thank you for sharing your insights. And I'm truly moved by some of those ideas. And I think there's just so much to be done still. And over to you, Tom.
Fantastic. Thank you. Really, really interesting. And I know that conversation could have run and run. I'm really keen that we maybe ask just one question from the audience. And it's this. What's the lifespan of a city digital twin? And it goes on to say, what's being done now that will still be valid in 10 years? And I think maybe we could expand that. So we could ask Patricio that question from a city perspective and Ilene that question from a building perspective. So what's the lifespan of a digital twin in your world? Patricio.
Yeah, maybe just a short comment, but I strongly believe that it will depend on what we discussed before. I mean, it will depend on standardization. I mean, what will be the right standards for that? And the lifespan of the solution, I strongly believe that will depend on the standards. I mean, at the moment, maybe considering we don't have strong standards, I mean, solutions could just last for maybe 1 or 2 years. But I mean, we need to provide more people. I mean, more partners and more stakeholders. We need to involve more stakeholders, and that way, the ecosystem will be more robust. And regarding the cities, most of the cities solutions for the cities should last, 10 years. If we are thinking of where we should locate the new metro station, this is a process that could take, and it could be good and it could last for, decades. So it depends on the case study. It depends on what we really, what the question that we really deal with it, and it also depends on the robustness of the standards as we discussed before.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ilene, it'd be great to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, so as I said, we're considering this an asset of building. We're considering this something that's going in, and it's going to need to have, maintenance over time and everything like that to ensure that it is something that lasts, right? I mean, the digital world's changing so fast. I think any of us trying to predict, what's going to look like in X amount of years is hard to do. But we're looking at this and what are you putting in that seems hopefully, as future-proof as possible to last as long with the building as it possibly can. But I totally agree with Patricio. It's all about its use. It's about its you need to be able to get what you need out of it, right? You need to be able to use that, or else it will die on the vine. And we all know there's a lot of things that's what happened. So to me, it's our foot is on the gas right now to do this and run with it, but that you can't take your foot off the gas. This is a completely different way of thinking. There's a different way of operating. There's a different way of all those things. And you've got to train people differently. You have to ensure that they're, held accountable differently, all these sorts of things to ensure its use, which then allows it to have a long lifespan.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I think we could keep going for a long time, but I'm conscious that we've reached the end of our hour. So I'd like to just reflect a few things that I think we've learned today, including how to make fireworks appear on Teams. So firstly, I think just to say that we heard that digital twins are not new, but that the focus on specific use cases is creating value. So it's taking us from SimCity to vCity. We heard that it's an ecosystem, and that there are lots of different roles to play in that ecosystem, that we should collaborate on the rules, but compete on the game, and that whatever your role is, get your data in order, lean into standardization, or at least pathways towards it. What you do with your data is what matters. So think about sharing it. People, change management, and all of the things associated with that are often the hardest points around the deployment of digital twins, not so much the technology, although that has its own challenges. We also heard quite a lot about assets, and that physical assets are easy to understand, but digital twins can have real asset value too. And finally, we heard sometimes that it's a no-brainer, but beware the unicorn. So identify specific problems with immediate potential for business impact, and I might add, for climate value. So with that, I'd like to just extend my thanks again to everyone on the call, for everyone joining in the audience. So Patricio Reyes from Barcelona Supercomputing Center, Ilene Goldfine from Hines, and Simon Evans and Amy Shen from Arup. Thanks all for joining, and I personally really enjoyed that session. Take care, have a good rest of the day wherever you're joining us from.
Thank you.